being the fact that we're talking about Proverbs 22:6 and the leadership Bible bubble, leading our children, I had to do the math. And it says a good example is worth 1,000 sermons. And I figured out that if you did 52 sermons a year, that's 19.23 years. So at 19 years old, most teenagers are out of the house. So for 19 years, they are listening and modeling whatever you do. And Abraham Lincoln said, as to repeat it, there is but one way to train up a child in the way he should go, and that is to travel it yourself. A good example is worth 1,000 sermons, 19.23 years. What you do has more impact on your child than all the lectures you could ever give. Management. Good management is the ability to discern the uniqueness of a child and teach him or her accordingly. We are to train up a child in the way he should go. This may mean we will have to adapt our style depending on the child's temperament and wiring. Memories. Parents should create memories. Why? Because memories are more important than things. Note that the verse says, when they are old, they will not turn. This implies that the child retains some memories of his or her early experiences and embraces them later in life. So what I wanted to do before we jump into the next one, which is the vision, hope for a preferred future, I want to just kind of go top of the stage, bottom of the stage, and just hear your conversation about modeling, management, and memories. And if you have anything that you'd like to share in 1 to 2 minutes. So with that, I'll start off with my co-host, Sister Catherine.
Wow. Awesome. Coach, I'm glad you're going back over this because we cannot repeat this enough. We have to make sure that we're setting a good example for the next generation, for our children, and then for other people's children, because they are next, and we have to prepare next. I was just reading the other day about Moses, how Moses prepared Joshua for next. Moses was an excellent example. He was an excellent example for Joshua. And then he anointed him. He placed his hands upon him, and he passed on what he had learned, what he taught. He passed on all that was within him into Joshua. And then Joshua, he took over. And then Joshua was in command, and Joshua had men under him, just like Moses. And he was a good example for those that was placed under him. And that's how we have to do. We got to modern ourselves just as Moses and Joshua and them. They taught us how to be great leaders, how to stand in that gap, how to stand when everything is rough, you still stand. When everything's going well, you still stand. You just got to stand on what you're focusing on, being a great leader, being perfect in what you know to do. So setting that model up for our children is very important because they are reading us. They are listening to what we're saying at the same time, but most of the time they go by what they see us doing. And so we want to make sure that we are a great model before our children and other people's children. And then we got to manage what's at hand, what we're being stewards over. You got to be a great manager, even a great manager over your own life. You know, you have to manage your life. If you don't, someone else is going to manage it for you. So I just like this. And then memories. Our children are always, when they're older, they're going to look back and they're going to talk about what happened back then. You know, it's always this happened and that happened. And the way they interpret what you are doing, you want to make sure that they're reading you correctly. They want to you want to make sure that you're living a life before your children where they're able to pass that on to their children, to let them know. My mom, my dad, they were a good example for me. They didn't lie, they didn't steal, they didn't try to go out and kill anyone. They were good to everyone that knocked on their door, and then those that they went out to visit, those that was in the street, they just had a great reputation. That's great for children to be saying out of their mouths about their parents. I pass the mic back over to you, Coach.
All right. And with that, I'm just going to check in. Kristen, did you want to share anything about this since you are on stage? All right. I will pass it over to Dee.
Examples are really important, and I think adults, maybe they're more aware now, but it didn't used to be, and because kids, that they see what you do, and it makes a big impression. So you want to really try to be a good example, not only for kids, but anybody. If you're able to be a good example, then you're going to have a lot more credibility, and you'll be able to influence a whole lot more people. And what was the other thing? Oh gosh, I can't think of what it was. So that's all for right now.
Thank you, Dee.
Yeah, I like that.
Yep. You see Miracle. All right. We'll jump over to Cass.
Oh, wow. So examples, my goodness. I think the best example I can give in a creative way is to definitely raise your kids in a foundation that you want them, and then like Sister Catherine said, to then later on be that role model for them. But what if you are you're in service, and so I had to say to my children, I'm leaving now to go fight for our country. So now I've instilled everything inside of you. It's instilled in you. So I'm guaranteed that you're going to make the right decisions through your teenage life while I'm going to be off in service. And I'm pretty proud today. I'm not pretty proud. I am very proud today to see that my daughter has done an amazing job with her life, with me not being 100% participating in it, with me being far away in location and distance. So she's in college right now, and I see she's being a leader in her sorority, and she's now trying to bring in new freshmen to bring into the sorority. And this is a healthy one. This isn't like one of those sororities that's like ooh gaga kind of ones. But anyway, I'm extremely proud of her. I know, seriously, I'm extremely proud of her. She's in an agricultural school, so these are very focused women. But I'm so proud of her because she has not wavered, even though it's been very challenging. Because I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people in her face saying, why isn't your mother here? Why isn't your mother doing this? Why isn't your mother doing that? And I just had to remind her, because I had to go away and serve our country. And as long as I can say it that way, and as long as she can understand my wording, then that's the example that I can give. And then when she does see me in person, I can definitely lead by example. So that would be one. But don't get me wrong, that's not like a proud ego thing on my end. Because, of course, I would 100% more prefer to be with her as much as possible in everything that I can do. Unfortunately, in the circumstances, that's just not an option. And it's not the option that I chose. It's just the option that was delivered to us. And we just both have to cope with it. So that's my honest, true feedback on that one.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you so much. And with that, I'm going to pass the mic over to Patrick.
Thank you, Coach. Thank you, everybody, for the Great. Yes. I was thinking about was what I was going to share, and something came to my mind when you read the bubbles. The inspiration equation. I was just listening to a teaching by John. Inspiration equation. It's what people know, what people see, what people feel. So what people know plus what people see and what people feel equals inspiration. So I think that really circles down to what we are saying, because the kids, they know a lot because of what they see, and they also get the feelings. So I think it goes down to leadership too, because that inspiration equation, that's what the followers see, because they know you and they see you and they get the feelings of what you do to them. So I think the kids, they see those things and they know what they see, and they also get the feelings of everything. So like somebody shared that though she was not away, but the daughter knew, because um, she told her and she knew. So they have to know which is in the equation. So they have to see things to prove that what they know, and also know that it boils down to the feelings. So I think that is it. Thank you very much, Coach.
You're welcome. And I think one of the things that you shared that I think is so powerful, Patrick, is, the whole kids are watching parents. We can't say that enough. And I believe that the biggest hypocrisy is when a parent says, you have to do this. Well, why you don't? And they say, because we're an adult. And that it just doesn't work. They don't understand that. So if you're setting that as your your caveat to be able to break the rules, that's not clear, and it leaves kids struggling. And then it's like, okay, well, as an adult, I can break the rules. So what do you think is going to happen when they turn 18 or when they turn 16 and they think they're an adult? So just wonderfully said, Patrick. Thank you so much for that share. And I want to pass the mic over the Atlantic Ocean to Ruth.
Mhm.
Good afternoon, Ruth.
Hey, Ruth.
She's walking along by the seaside with her puppy. Ruth, going once, twice. All right. UC Miracle, did you step back in by any chance? All right. We will jump into what's next. At this point, we'll go into the next thing. And
I'm here, Coach. So sorry.
Okay.
I was a little, but I was gonna say that. Sorry, Coach, that but I'm here. So, this subject is very important and critical. We've got to be leaders who lead by example. And I like what you just said, Coach, because when you said it doesn't work for the kids or the children of this generation or dispensation of era, it is true. I'm thinking about the fact that, like you rightly said, Coach, when you tell a follower, which could be our kids, don't do this, and they watch you doing the same thing. Now they grow up, you see them doing the same thing, and they tell their kids, don't do that, and they're doing the same thing. And they might end up saying, well, that's how I saw my dad did it, or that's how I see my mom did it. So we got to be people who live by example. And in fact, that is pure hypocrisy. For us to be saying a different thing, and we don't. Sometimes Patrick used that phrase in the past. He said we should practice
what we preach.
Right. So, Coach, this is very critical, and we have to really do better in this aspect because it has caused a lot of confusions, So with this, thank you, Coach.
Yeah. Awesome share.
I see Ruth.
Hi, Coach. Well, from what everybody's saying, it seems we're all talking about leadership of the next generation. And to add to everybody's face, one of the things that I have to children are my parents. Them.
Ruth, you seem to be going in and out. Can you hear me?
Who I've known through his family for many years. And over the years, he's progressing really well. And we have many conversations. Those that don't find very quickly that when they try and tell me something that isn't the way things are meant to happen, that usually it will create problems. And to be honest, unless they're willing to live up to the principles, that relationship is normally very short-lived because they themselves will decide that they'd rather be with somebody else in a position where obviously I'm looking at very important factors within their personal and business life. But that's absolutely fine because that's their choice. But that doesn't mean that I haven't led them in a way that still has instilled those principles in them. It just means that they've chosen to follow. And with that, I yield the mic.
Thank you, Ruth. Sister Catherine, did you want to add something? You don't have to. I heard you say yep.
Well, I mean, I like what she was saying because you can train your child up in the right way, and they're going to do what they desire to do. It is their choice. But one thing that you can trust is that you set a great example. And so even if they may be going off the road, going in the wrong direction, you know that within them, you made sure that they know right from wrong. They know, what to do and when to do it. And if they choose the opposite of what you've taught them, that's between them and God, and it's like that. I mean, we have a lot of children out there, the parents, you put a lot into them, but they end up going with their friends and going the wrong way. But at least you did the right thing by raising them up, that setting them up for a good life. And if they chose something else, that's totally on them.
It's really good. All right. I just want to say welcome to Carnell. I know she can't come up on stage at the moment, but I just wanted to say welcome. And with that, vision. So we move into the next thing. And I'm just going to go through this, and then we're going to jump into situational leaders. But I'm on page, for those of you that do have a John Maxwell Bible, this page 730 in the NIV. Leaders understand the importance of their minds to the future of their organizations. Consider some of the timeless principles that are offered in Proverbs 23 about our minds and a godly vision for tomorrow. Number one, your thoughts determine your character. 2, be careful of your thoughts. They may break into words at any time. Number 3, don't waste your thoughts on those who don't hunger for them. Number 4, the first person you lead is you, and the first organ you master is your mind. Don't let your mind drift away from God's truth and into vain envy. Stay confident that your vision will come to pass. And lastly, discipline your thoughts to remain steadfast in what you know is right. So that's a vision, hope for a preferred future. And then situational leaders, they read the need of the environment, then they lead. Leaders need to respond to individuals based on their needs rather than their faults. Proverbs 25 verses 21 to 22 encourages us to see what others need, even our enemies, and respond accordingly. Good leaders do this well. They don't lead out of a predetermined package of behaviors, but size up every situation and discern what must happen to reach the desired goal. Like a quarterback who reads the defense, then calls an audible from the line of scrimmage, good leaders remain flexible and may change their response in a moment, based not on what a person deserves, but quote unquote, on what they need to succeed. Good leaders follow this path in difficult situations. Number 1, they aren't afraid to admit they need to listen to get understanding. They read. They evaluate what has happened and what steps are best to take. They feed. They communicate what they've observed to key players. So they feed information out to the key players. They heed. They act on the basis of their discovery, even if it means change. And they lead. They provide direction to those involved. So I'm going to read Proverbs 25 verses 21 and 22, because I think when you hear these two verses as written in the Bible, something will click about what I just shared. They need, they read, they feed, they heed, they lead. Verse 21. If your enemy is hungry, give him food to eat. If he is thirsty, give him water to drink. In doing this, you will heap burning coals on his head, and the Lord will reward you. How's that for interesting? So my question for everybody that I want to go around, if your enemy is hungry, give him food to eat. If he's thirsty, give him water to drink. Why would you do that?
That's a good question.
Well, you get to answer it first.
Well, what's really being said here that's not being said is that we all are, at one time, we were all an enemy to God. And God fed us regardless, even though that we were out there against him. He fed us when we were hungry. He continued to feed us when we needed something to drink. That's just the kind of God that we serve. He doesn't treat us the way that we treat him. And that's how we got to treat one another. We have to treat each other the way that we want to be treated. And that's why the Lord said, love your neighbor as yourself. Because if you don't love yourself, it's going to be hard to love someone else. And you're not, if you don't treat yourself well, you're not going to treat your neighbor well. But God wants us to treat each other in a godly way, a good way. We have to treat people with respect. Even if they're not giving us respect, we have to treat them with respect. So we have to look beyond what we can see, what we feel. We can't allow our feelings to get in the way, because see, sometimes you can be so hurt because of something someone said, or they didn't do what you wanted them to do, and you got to focus in on what's the need here. Am I able to help this person, regardless if this person is doing what I desire for him to do? I'm still going to help that person. You always got to have a giving heart, because we serve a God that's giving. He has given us life. He gave his only begotten son so that we may live and not die. And so to be able to do that, we got to step out of us. We got to look beyond me. We got to look beyond what I want, and look into the needs of someone else, and try to, if we can meet those needs, go ahead and do it. Give someone something to eat if they're hungry, if it's in your hands to do so. If someone's thirsty, give them something to drink. That's how our God treat us. So back to you, Coach.
And I just want to share from Facebook, this person, Eric Eide, just said, good word. Can't be a do as I say, not as I do type of parent. Children are like sponges, and they soak up what is around them. It's just like people who are new to faith. We are reborn, and we watch how our pastors act, how they walk, how they talk, etc. That's why the Christian community is so hypocritical in many, many places. We need true leaders. We need people who are followers of Christ, that are doing as Christ did, not doing as the Pope did. Right? We know that there's things that have happened in the past from the religious aspect, the Crusades, for instance, and most war in the world can come back to some faith-based argument.
Yeah.
So we have to be very, very careful. And one of the things for me in that space is, my father and my stepmother, although they weren't churchgoers every week, they had a problem with organized religion. What they did, though, was they believed in God. They believed in the Bible. They believed in Jesus Christ. And the way that they chose to do that was love thy neighbor. All the commandments as best as they could every day. And when they stood on the top of a mountain, my stepmom, I'll never forget it. When we, at the first time I went up skiing with my stepmom, and we got to the chairlift and we got off at the top of the mountain, and I look out and I'm like, wow. And the look on my face made my stepmother smile. And she said, now, this is why I believe there's a God.
Wow.
Because this is what he created. Now, I learned respect. I learned decorum. I learned common sense. I learned how to treat thy neighbor. I watched my dad sometimes fix friends' stuff or neighbor stuff before he fixed our stuff because he knew he could help. And they were in a dire need situation versus ours was just a want. Right? So when I see those type of things, and I look back now with the filter of being a follower of Christ, I look and go, wow, I can't imagine how I would have turned out if my father and my stepmother hadn't redirected me a few times.
Wow. That's good.
And I'm so happy they chose. And, you know, what's the saying, spare the rod and spoil the child. Well, my parents definitely didn't spare the rod, and they didn't overuse it. They just used it when I was beyond, just beyond. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
So as we and so for some of you that don't know me and haven't met me,
Troublemaker.
I was my wife just popped in and she said I was a troublemaker.
Yes,
I
sound
was
like it.
Dennis the Menace. You can come and say hi.
Oh,
Oh, no.
hello.
This is my wife Kristen just popped in on social media, so she's being seen all over the place.
Okay, bye-bye.
So yes, I was Dennis the Menace,
You were.
and my parents, you know, were able to restore integrity into me, and I think it was a very powerful thing, because I learned by example from them, the decorum they had, and the way they treated each other, and the way they set the rules when I went to live with my father and my stepmother. My dad looked at me and said, and my stepmother's name was Frida, when Frida speaks, it is me speaking.
Wow.
And if you dishonor her, you'll pay the price when I get home.
Oh.
So, and, you know, for me, you know, one of the things people ask is, okay, so you're doing these Bible studies live and you're talking about family and you're a business coach. How are you relating this? And what's the purpose of this? Why are you doing this in Zig Ziglar? And I said, because I see the value in all of these things, especially today with the modern technology that doesn't let us separate ourselves like we used to be able to do. Now we're connected, cell phones, watches. We know where people are. We have locators, devices on our cell phones to support us knowing, right? So we don't go off on a tangent. We also, the idea is that if we look at these principles, and I take this same principle and I show my employees, i.e. children, and demonstrate this is how to do the work. This is how to do the project. You know, I remember my first time learning how to hold a hammer, a real hammer on a construction site. And he said, have you ever used a hammer? And I said, well, yeah, my dad taught me to use a hammer when I was a little kid. And here I am, now I'm 12. So I'm a big kid in my head. And he says, okay, here's a nail, put the nail in. And I must have, well, first of all, I missed it the first time. And then I hit my finger and then I hit the nail. And it took me about 15 tries to get the nail into all the way down into the wood. And I look over and he's just, the contractor that's training me says, I knew it. I knew it. I saw a greenie when I knew it. And he said, here's how we do it. And he said, by the end of the day, you will be able to do this. And he takes a nail out. He taps it to set it, removes his hand and swings and buries the nail in the next hit. And I just look and go, wow.
Okay, that made that easy.
I could do 8 nails in the time that he did one. I mean, in the time that I did one before. And so by the end of, it was actually by the end of the next day, I wasn't quite as quick as he thought. I was able to do the same thing. And I learned the difference in different hammers. And I think he demonstrated, he showed me like a parent. he didn't just say, no, you need to do this and walk away like a lot of people today do because they're in such a hurry.
Yeah.
He took the time. He even showed me how to hold the hammer. He said and he told me how the hammer was designed, which I thought I was listening to my dad because that's what my dad always used to do with tools. He just never spent that much time with a hammer. So, I got to run home and tell my dad and show him this new hammer that I'd been given. And I told my dad what I learned. And my dad goes, yep, that's a carpenter's hammer. Very different from the one we have downstairs. And then he took me into the garage and he showed me 5 hammers, which now I had these glasses that had been put on me that had me look at the hammers and go, whoa, there's 4 different hammers. I just saw a hammer. And when you look at this is all what we're talking about here.
Wow. In
lessons. Being able to distinguish and to be able to share. And the fun about this is we get mad or frustrated when kids don't understand. What we don't realize in the heat of the moment is they have no frame of reference. They're learning. So when you get frustrated, it's like, why didn't you, clean the pan this way? Well, I didn't know there was more than one way to clean the pan. I cleaned the inside where I cooked the food. Well, yeah, but you had food on your hands, so you need to clean the handle. And the food, if you see it, dripped over the edge, so you need to clean the bottom and the side. Oh, so you need to clean the whole pan, not just where you use.
Good. That's good.
So these are the things, and Proverbs 27, verse 1 through 21 gets to be very interesting because this starts to talk about, and I'm going to skip a few things where it says, down in verse 8 and verse 9, it says, like a bird that flees its nest is anyone flees from home. A lot of times kids leave home, run away from home because parents don't take the time to explain. So a kid like me then, if my father hadn't explained and that contractor hadn't explained, I would have gotten frustrated and run away. Why? Because I would have been beating myself up because I didn't understand and I could never figure it out and I was never going to be good enough. So I may as well go find somebody else that would think I was good enough. Perhaps somebody else would. So as we look at these things, we want to see how do we be careful as a leader. And the next bubble is the law of addition. When people are esteemed, relationships are redeemed. Leaders understand that people represent an organization's most appreciable asset. No recess is more valuable than people. None. If you're an employer, none. If you're a parent, your kids are the most valuable things. Therefore, people skills represent a leader's most important attribute. So think about that. The skill for me hitting that nail made him paying me by the hour, put more nails into the wood. The skill of my father teaching me about the rest of the hammers, now that he saw that it had been missing for me, was the next time we'd work together, he could say, hey, get the claw hammer.
Yeah.
So kids are the parents' most valuable, important attribute. And to make sure that we are being wise and we're practicing what we preach. Wise leaders practice the law of addition. Leaders add value to an organization by serving their people. Mm-hmm. So parents serve their kids. And I don't mean when I say that wait on them hand and foot and bring them breakfast in bed and make their bed for them and put their shoes and clothes out and fold everything and put it. No, I don't mean it. Teach them how to do that so they understand why to do it. So that when they go looking for the brown shirt, they know they don't have to dig through 15 shirts that are piled up in the closet because you never put them on the hangers.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Leaders add value to an organization by serving their people. This text presents some fundamentals on relationships. It teaches that if people are esteemed, relationships are redeemed. Leaders can learn at least the following principles from this chapter. Don't brag. Leaders understand how little they get from self-promotion, right? So parents, the same thing. So to me, when I'm speaking about a leader here, I'm speaking about a parent, I'm speaking about a boss, all of it. Don't envy. Leaders sabotage themselves if their motive is to keep up with others. You know what? A teenager isn't going to keep up with dad. So therefore, dad needs to reaffirm and let the kid know, look, you're not going to be able to, and my legs are 1.5 feet longer than yours. My muscles are twice as big as yours. So give yourself some grace. This is the same with employees. Look, I've been working on this piece of equipment. I've been working on this computer. I've been working with Apple versus Android for a long time. So I may know more than the other person. So take time. Be forthright. Leaders don't fear confrontation, but speak the truth in love. What do I mean by they don't fear confrontation? They don't mind going up against somebody that's upset that they weren't able to accomplish something, and then have a discussion and share with them how to do it in the future, how to upgrade what they were doing, look and see what was missing, the presence of which would make a difference in what to do next. Don't forsake your roots. Leaders understand the power of relational heritage. Speaks for itself. Stay close. Leaders work at maintaining relationships and meeting needs. Right? Parents, we wonder if we go to work and we're never home and we never do family meals when we are home because we're busy and we are just too tired and we don't think about it, then we wonder why there's no family nucleus.
Wow. So
come home, set your electronics down, leave them alone, and go and have a meal, even if it's only for an hour, and get related and discuss. Get your head out of your phone. Add value. Leaders sharpen those with whom they come in contact. Of course they do. Most leaders have done it before. They know the pitfalls and they know how to excel. So let's share. Hey, I saw what you were just doing. It didn't damage it. And if you continue to do it that way, it might damage it. So let me show you, let me give you another way to do it that'll make it easier. It'll accomplish the given task and it won't have a chance of doing damage. Oh, thank you. I didn't make him wrong. I didn't say, stop doing it that way. I didn't yell at them. I didn't grab it out of their hand. I didn't get mad. I said, hey, don't be moved by flattery. Stay humble or you will stumble. Here's the thing, parents, just because you know how to do it, I promise you, you stumbled a few times when you were a kid. Leaders, the same thing. Hello. Remember, you were once dumb too. Right? And I don't say that I don't say that to be mean. I just say it because you didn't know how to do it. You hadn't been taught yet. So remember that. Remember. And if you forgot, look, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize I hadn't taught you how to do that. Guess what? That cleans it up. Be responsible. Okay. So I've spoken enough. I'd love to hear from you all some of, just what are you getting out of this conversation? What do you see for yourself? What would you like to share? Let's go. We'll start with Catherine, and then we'll go top of the stage, bottom of the stage. Okay. Over to you, Catherine.
Wow. It's just great. I enjoy working with the youth, teaching them, and then asking questions. I have found that asking questions, you get a lot more out of what you're trying to accomplish, because when you ask questions, the person is able to explain to you what they have received. And if they have received what you're trying to teach them, then they're ready to teach someone else. But a lot of times we may share something with someone or trying to teach them, and we're saying one thing and they're thinking something else. And so they're going to go with, oh, what they interpret what you were saying, but that's not what you was trying to get across to them. So it's always good to check in. Now, what did I say? Well, what did you receive from that? Show me how to do this. You know, since I've demonstrated this to you, now you show me, you teach me. And when you can get the youth to step up and teach what you've already taught them, you got something going on there, because they know what they're doing. And when a person knows exactly what they're doing, they go forward with it with confidence. You know, it's not like, oh, they're nervous, they're shaky, they're not for sure if this is it. And it causes a lot of errors. You can stop a lot of errors from going forward when you check in with that person that you're working with, your child, your son, someone else's son or daughter, to find out what they know and how they're going to go about to do what you taught them. So I like all that you shared here, Coach. Being a great leader here, we can't just assume or guess at something. It's not good to just guess if the person has received the information that you're trying to pass on. It's to communicate with that person, you know, talk to that person. Don't just teach, you know, just don't go at them like, I know what I'm saying, and what I'm saying, you just do it. But okay, you just explain it to me, but I have no idea what you just said. So you want me to run off now and do the job, and I have no idea what to do. That person is lost, and you're going to end up with a big mess. It causes the whole company to have problems because the person was half trained. And even with your child is going to go out not knowing exactly what to do. And then they're going to end up getting into a lot of trouble because they were not trained properly, but you thought the information was passed on correctly. Back to you, Coach.
That's beautiful. Exactly. In fact, I just wrote that and put that into the channels that I'm able to comment in, which is YouTube and Facebook. I said, remember to ask questions to see if the interpretation of what you said is received with workability and integrity.
I like that.
Have them show you and perhaps show the next person. And the best way to master is to learn to instruct as you go.
I like that.
You know, I'm as many of you know, I am studying Taekwondo. And one of the things that the John Yarwood, the 5th degree black belt, who's the master, or he's not a master yet, but he's the lead, and it's his store. He said, look, Les, if you really want to learn quickly, jump into the instructor program. And I went, I'm a white belt. He says, come to the instructor class anyway. You can lead the warm-ups, right? You were in the military. You can lead the warm-ups. I'm like, yeah, I can do that.
You do that.
And, you know, so he got me in front of the class immediately so that, and here's the thing that I know happened in my head in that moment was, every time I learn something, I have to be responsible for the people looking at me, that even though I hadn't instructed anything about the moves yet, they were watching to see, am I paying attention? Am I chit-chatting? Am I doing what I was told? Am I paying attention? All of those things. So in that moment, and I chuckle at it now because I've been there for a year and a half, I look at it now and I chuckle and I went, you know, Mr. Yarwood did a really good job. He planted a seed into the field of new people, knowing that people would look at me and watch me. So I was a secret plant. And I didn't even know I was being, and I say this, you know, tongue in cheek, I didn't know that I was being used. And I see how the use of me benefited me, it benefited the class, and it helped Mr. Yarwood. And I say this as an example because of what Sister Catherine just said. This is how we can exponentially make a difference with kids. And you know what? I was a kid at that point. Yes, I may have been 59 years old, but I'm still a kid in relation to the doing what a white belt was doing when I started and a yellow belt. So with that, I want to pass the mic over to Dee.
Well, we've covered a whole bunch of stuff there. No, because I got stuck about loving your enemies. And, yeah, which and one of the biggest reasons is because God wants everyone to have the opportunity for everlasting life, and so if we are showing kindness, even though they're not, it's going to make an impression. And if you're sending out negative, you're pretty much going to get back that too. Often even a lot more than what you had sent out. So hang on just a minute. I've got to get my dog inside here. I'll be with you in just a second here.
If anybody ever says, "Is this live?" We've got all this stuff to prove it's live.
Yeah. Yeah, I reckon. Gosh. Yeah. So we want to do that because we want them to have life too, and our Creator wants that, and I think Jesus really set a good example because the Samaritan woman at the well. Samaritans and Jews at that time were enemies. And so you wouldn't think that he would be interested in helping her at all. And she was a woman. And back then, men really were not supposed to publicly have anything to do with women, pretty much. So, but Jesus was setting an example, and he also had the ability to read hearts. And so he started a conversation with her. And because he did that, she went back, and there was a whole bunch of other Samaritan people that were formerly enemies, but now they were on their way to everlasting life. That's it.
Great share.
Woo woo! Thanks, Dee. You see miracle. All right, over to you, Cass.
Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna agree with Dee because my head was first stuck on why should you love your enemies, and then you brought up all these stories, and I'm like, I don't even know where to go with this now, but it's okay. So first of all, the reason why I feel like we should love our enemies is kind of like forgiveness. It has nothing to do with them. It has everything to do with your own conscious, your own well-being, that you can sleep at night. There's been plenty of incidences in my life where I know someone deeply hates me and I don't care. I will still give them a hug. And at the end of the day, I don't really care what they think about me. I know exactly what I did consciously was the right thing to do. So, but it takes a while to get to that place. And that's the same thing with forgiveness. It takes a while to forgive someone because it's not for them, it's for you. So that's why you love your enemies, you lead by example. But you also then teach your children as a role model. If you don't do this, you end up living with hatred. And what does the hatred do? It turns into like a cancer in your body. And then that cancer becomes a contagious group that you will create that's all like cancerous. Like you're all hating people, but you think that you love people, but you don't. And so if you can, revert that to a place that's Why you love your enemies is because you want to create a loving atmosphere, regardless of who people are. Because here's the key point here: because there's always second chances, and people possibly could change. Some are like more in an area that they can actually change, and then some are much more higher risk that they probably won't, but that's not really your call. That's really up to the individual to make that call. So as long as you have that open mind, but have your boundaries set, then you're okay, as long as you're doing the right thing in your own consciousness. But some of the stories that you brought up was hilarious, because I can think of several situations as well where I've witnessed, I'm not going to even mention specifics recently, you can actually see where a division comes across in the room, where one is we're all forgiving, we're all happy over here, we can deal with this. And then the other side of the room is, obviously we're in a different place here. Do you understand? And it's like a totally different attitude, but who cares? It's like, okay, all right, I can blend it with both. Let's do this. But not everyone is ready for that. So keep the open mind, and then understand that maybe someone in the hardcore area, they'll be willing to say, oh, I just saw the loving side. Maybe I need to change. And that's why we do this, because you can change someone's life just by loving your enemies. Those are my thoughts, Coach.
Great.
Thank you so much, Cass. Whoop.
Awesome.
And over to Patrick.
Thank you, Coach. Thank you, everybody, for the great shares. I just want to appreciate Coach and Sister Catherine for the live stream. It's a beautiful background. Coach, you're wearing a beautiful black shirt, and Sister Catherine is wearing a beautiful yellow T-shirt with Tish inscribed. Beautiful background with Coach. Your background has beautiful pictures on the back wall, so it's a beautiful view. Thank you for that. Great shares. Loving your enemies, feeding your enemies. We should know that our enemies is a little different from strangers. We can easily feed a stranger because we don't have hard feelings for strangers and neighbors. But when we say enemies, it's kind of, I know this man is against me. This man is against my life, my business, my family. So enemies is kind of someone that is typically just against you. So when the scriptures say enemies, it's kind of different, because to feed your enemies, it takes divine energy, it takes divine virtue, it takes power from God to do that. Because humanly, when you know this is your enemy, you don't want to pass the same way with him, because you know this man is going to take your life or something. But the scripture said, go to his house and give him food and give him water, give him a drink. Somebody that you know is really against you. So that is something that you know, because you read from the scripture. You know that this is a divine law from God. Because as a human, I'm not going to spend my money for my enemy, somebody it's against me. So it takes something divinely from God, from above, for you to go your way to spend your money for your enemy. So I've experienced that in college. Somebody that was almost tried to beat me up, a leader of a gang, and we had a problem. He almost beat me up, but I was smart to run away. But sometime I was in a shop trying to buy something, and he was asking me for a drink. Can you buy a drink for me? And then I've known Christ. So I remember that if I haven't known Christ, I wouldn't do that, because he wanted to beat me up. I knew him is a bad man, but now he's asking me to buy a drink for him. And I didn't have much, but I did that. I said, okay, take the drink, and I paid for the drink. So it's a divine law that proves to your enemy that there is God, because your enemy know that he's your enemy, that you're not going to to do something good. But when you do that, that's going to hit him, that he might change his life and come to Christ. So I think it's a divine law that that can really do good, that can really change people. And about our kids, mirroring, as we know, the mind of kids, it's like an open plate. Is very open, like somebody said on Facebook that was watching. So whatever you feel into the minds of your kids, it's what they automatically begin to manifest, because from the age of 1 to 8, the mind that are open. So in those ages, that is when those kids magnet, and they're like the sponge. They magnet whatever it's in their circumstance, in their environment, and when they're at the age of 10, they start manifesting. So when you see kids run away, start acting strange, is because the thing that they have inside of them is not the right thing, because they have to be filled with the right nutrient, the right love, whatever they need. So when kids start acting strange at the teenage years, start running away and so much things, taking drugs, it's because they don't have the right feelings. The parents didn't fill them enough with the right things that they need. So I think we as parents should be careful of the things that we do around, because the kids around are just picking up like the sponge. They are magneting, and when they get big, they start manifesting, because a lot of us our weaknesses, like Coach said, is the training that we have, that we are using now. The things that we saw our parents doing is what some of us are doing. The foundations that I have as a kid, those foundations are helping me now. So it's the foundation that we give those kids, is the foundation that they are going to build their house, and they are going to lay their structure upon. So thank you very much, Coach.
Great. Awesome.
Awesome, Patrick. Thank you. And with that, we pass it to Ruth.
Hi, Coach. So many memories from what you were saying about how your dad was and what you learnt from him. I mean, my dad used to show such kindness to everyone and would always do anything for all of the people within the church. When they needed him, he was always there. And one of the people that has been my lifelong friend as well, she was slightly older than me, a young married woman at the time we first came to Colchester, and she became almost like another daughter to him. And I can remember Beryl coming and looking after him when he became very ill, and sadly she passed away a year ago. But for me, my dad was always my role model in everything. And he didn't realize when he said he'd made me independent that it went almost beyond the bounds of independence, in that I would never be fazed to do anything that was necessary, no matter what the circumstances of that were. And in terms of looking on somebody as an enemy, even when I've known that people were doing me harm, they're still my human family.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of seeing all of the bad things, I would exercise the ability not to judge them, and to always give them that chance to turn things around. And even if that meant that I displayed leadership and made sure that they put the right perspective on something if we were talking in public, or they needed to do something a certain way to preserve the good for all. That would be the line that was taken in any corporate meetings, no matter how serious. And when we got out of that meeting, that was the time when the true story came out. And I said, right, now this is what the next steps are. And this is what you need to do to make amends for what has happened. But that's what you display in the background of how you're trying to amend something that somebody that is betraying you has created. And at no point, I think the mistake that I made was blaming myself for the impact of what individuals did on my life for many years to come. Because of them having had the ability, because they couldn't perform what they promised. That was the factor that brought down my own life at the time. But did I blame them for that? No, I blamed myself, and perhaps that blame was taken too much inside, and that's something that I believe I've only been coming to realize more recently. But yes, some lovely memories there of my dad. And in terms of laying out clothes in the order for our children, life comes full circle, Coach. And that's something when you're helping somebody with dementia that you do as an aid to their memory as well. So that's another memory that was brought back to me by today, and I yield the mic.
Awesome.
Thank you, Ruth. Awesome. And I just want to swing it back to Sister Catherine as we wrap up here for today, and we'll be back again on Monday. But over to you, Sister Catherine, if there's anything you'd like to say, and then I'll say a couple things and we'll close up shop.
Just such great shares, powerful. Oh my goodness. And it's just proved that memories is important. When we look back and see what our fathers taught us, or our moms, or even our teachers, those leaders that had stewardship over us, those things that they poured into our lives, it takes root. It takes root within you. And while you walk in that walk that you're supposed to walk, you're remembering, oh, you know, I was taught this and I was taught that, but a lot of things we have to be retaught, because some things our parents or our leaders shared that wasn't good for us, and we took it in. We took it on as truth. You know, it's amazing how you can believe a lie, you can take it on as truth, and then when you find out in life, oh no, that's not right. I can't do that. And when you do find out the right thing to do, go ahead. Do it. Pass that on to someone else. You want to make sure that you are passing on those things that's going to be helpful for people in life. People, they need encouragement. They need to see great leaders. I want to go back to, we're studying the story of Joshua, and it was crystal clear that Moses was a good example for Joshua. I mean, he did make the mistake and he disobeyed God and he was unable to go to the promised land, but the majority of his life around Joshua was positive, very positive, until Joshua was able to carry out what the next. And we have to prepare our youth for next, because we're not always going to be here. Our children and our children's children, they're going to continue on. We're going to leave this scene soon, but we want to leave a legacy here in this earth realm of living a righteous life, living a life that someone can look back and say, oh, you know, yes, that lady, she told me that I should always tell the truth. And she was right. My goodness. And so that's good when you're able to share something and someone receive it, and then they start practicing it. They start living that way of righteous. So this has just been a great share here, Coach, just teaching the leaders, not only that you're a leader in your home, but you're a leader in the street. You're a leader wherever you go. You're leading. When you're placed before someone else and people are receiving from you, you're leading that person. And you want to make sure that when you leave that person's presence, that you left a good impression, that you left something there, and that person can continue on in their life and then pass it on to someone else that's going to do great in our community, that's going to be great for our nation, it's going to be great for your children's children. My goodness. So Coach, this is awesome. Thank you so very much for opening this room up and sharing. And here we're studying this we're pulling this information from Proverbs, and it's amazing how you can pattern your life after what's laid out here in Proverbs to be a great leader here in this earth realm. So thank you, Coach. I pass the mic back over to you.
Well, thank you, everyone. Appreciate all of this. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here to share with you all. And look forward to next time. We'll see you back here at 12:30 Central Standard Time on Monday. And with that, make sure you take a look at the law of the picture on page 736, Proverbs 29, verses 2-18. This is about attitudes, stability, compassion, honesty, and vision. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. God bless you. Have a blessed weekend. Enjoy yourself and have a scoop of ice cream somewhere. All right. Take care.
Many, many blessings.